Hello ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here with another rant. So many rants, so little time. I've actually recorded this rant already, but I kind of wanted to redo it, revisit it, because I felt like I got a little off topic on the last one, and just kind of went trailing off. And so I kind of want to try to keep it a little more focused, a little more grounded in this one. So we're going to be talking about loot boxes. Loot boxes. There's been a lot of talk about loot boxes equaling gambling. And I can see arguments on both sides of this. And, like, long story short, my feelings on it, loot boxes themselves aren't necessarily a bad thing. They're not, it's not necessarily gambling, it depends on how it is implemented. But it can get really bad because all it takes is one developer to have a very bad system, and then it's gonna just get worse from there. Because if that system, you know, is seen to be profitable by a large company, then other companies are going to kind of adopt that business model. Now, I know that's a kind of a slippery slope argument, but given how prolific loot boxes have started becoming and how uncomfortable a lot of people are getting with this type of trend, I can see this being a more probable slippery slope than a just, you know, worst case scenario. So I want to talk about two different loot box style systems that I know about, or that I've personally been involved with, and that how I feel it's a little disingenuous in some ways and a little on the nose in others. So looking at, say, the Overwatch loot box system, that's a loot box system that I feel is not necessarily gambling. It can be, but it's really not, because it's completely optional. Because everything you get from it is the same things you get from the free loot boxes. There's not a difference between the free loot boxes you get just through playing the game, leveling up, doing arcade events, things like that, or free event loot boxes. Nothing different between the two sets of loot boxes. The ones you buy and the ones you get for free are the same things. They have the same rates for everything. It's the same random stuff. And a lot of people were trying to say that it's a little different because relating it to CCGs, card games. I've played a lot of card games in my life. They try to say, well, even if you get just a pack full of crap cards, you can sell those cards. Most of the time, you're only going to get a couple of pennies per card, because a lot of the common cards are really not going to be worth much. So even if you get a bunch of commons, a bunch of crap, you're still getting something. And the same thing goes for those loot boxes in Overwatch. You get a bunch of white items, a blue item, you're not getting much. And if you get like a purple or a gold that you've already got, you get coins that are in-game currency that you could use to buy other items. So, like, it kind of follows the same CCG aspect. And some people say CCG packs are gambling, which I think that's a little rough. But Overwatch, I think, has a fairly decent loot box system. It's completely optional, and the things you get in it are purely cosmetic. It has no impact on gameplay at all. There's nothing, you just get different skins, and you can buy these skins through the in-game currency that you get through getting duplicate items from the loot boxes you can get for free, or you could just get them from these same boxes. There's nothing unique for one set or the other. So I really don't feel that's gambling. I feel that that's just, you can speed up the process of getting these cosmetic items by spending money. That's the only way I say it. Yes, it is kind of random, but it's still just speeding up the process. Because you look at YouTubers who do the tons of unboxings, like Muselk, Tyridan, people like that have spent tons on these loot boxes for these types of videos, and they have hundreds of thousands of in-game credit. They can buy anything that they don't already have, and typically they do, and they still have a massive surplus. But that's because they've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on the loot boxes to get all these items, and then everything they're getting is just now duplicates. So, like, really, the money is just speeding up the process. But you can get everything just through in-game. And everything you get is tied to your account. There is no trading. There's no second-hand market, no second economy to have to work with. Which leads me into the second loot box system. TF2 and their crates. Now, Team Fortress 2, any weapon you can get, any weapon that does change gameplay mechanics, they can be acquired through just normal gameplay. The things that you get as the loot box system are the crates. Now, you get the crate, you cannot open it on your own. You have to buy a key. So the crate is really just wasted inventory space on the off chance that if you spend money, you might be able to get something better. Because the catch with this is you get all of the base weapons, all of the standard no-frill weapons just through playing the game. You can get special weapons through crates. Kill streak weapons. Weapons that count, you know, the number of specific kills you get, or number of times this, that, or the other happens while using this weapon. You get interesting things like, or you can get weapons that have unique skins. They were doing weird skins for a while. There's special weapons that can only really be acquired by opening crates. You can open crates and get pieces to make a regular weapon, a strange weapon, and that sort of thing. But again, all of those materials come from crates, so people have to be opening the crates. The big thing about the crates is you can get special hats. Now, you can get normal hats just through playing, but if you open a crate, you have a very low percentage of getting an unusual hat, which has some sort of weird particle effect behind it. Does not change gameplay, purely cosmetic, but is a status symbol in this game because there is a secondary market. All of the items you get can be traded. You can have them broken down, turned into scrap, which becomes, or you can just keep them as items. There's a value currency for everything on the second-hand market. Everything has a value. And it typically relates to keys, because keys are only able to be acquired through purchasing through Valve. So everything kind of relates to keys. So scrap metal is worth, you know, a fraction of a key. Keys are worth a fraction of special weapons, or because the odds of getting that special weapon are like 1 in 20. Or one key, or a unusual is worth, you know, tons of keys because it is a rare hat and rare particle effect combination. And then since keys have a real world value, everything else has a real world value. So everything can be related to, well, a key is worth $2, this is worth 20 keys. The math kind of extrapolates from there. The problem with that is you have a second-hand market where you have to either figure out how to navigate the trading system, be comfortable navigating the trading system, or not be worried that you are going to be scammed, because scams happen, especially when things have real-world equivalencies in terms of money. So you have two very different loot box systems. One, everything is purely cosmetic. Everything is tied directly to you, 100% optional. The second, also 100% optional, but everything's not tied to you, and there are things that are acquirable only through spending money that shows you're spending money, you're putting more of a status into it, which that I could see is a little bit closer to gambling. Because once you start bringing like the whole status symbol aspect into it, that's when things get really kind of uncomfortable. And then you have things like CSGO that I've never played, and I've seen people, like, there are auctions for their loot boxes, there's giveaways for items that are worth tons of money, there's gambling going, like, there's like actual legitimate gambling, people betting on either the odds of unlocking an item or betting on the outcome of matches. Like, there's actual gambling on. So, like, you have different kind of tiers of how scummy this can be. The problem is, not every game is going to be able to adopt the Overwatch method of having it be strictly cosmetic. There's going to be some games where it's like, yeah, we can't just throw out that many cosmetics and have it, you know, be a viable business practice. We have to have something special. So you kind of lean into the TF2 market where it's like, well, you know, now things are going to start, you can only get this by spending money and it's not a guaranteed chance. That starts getting into gambling. Where if the only way you can get this is through money, and even then it's not guaranteed. That's where the gambling aspect comes in. That's where a lot of people start getting a little frightened. If you have a second-hand market, you can kind of bypass that by allowing people to trade items amongst themselves, thus going back to the card game argument of even if you get things that you don't want out of a pack, you can trade them for something you do want. Or trade up for something else that has a little bit more value and continue making that trade. There was actually a video series for someone who played TF2 that started off, it was Road to an Unusual. Like, they started off with just the base components of the lowest end value of the economy and started trading up items until they got one of the hats that was worth a fair bit of money. And they chronicled this journey. But that's something you have to have some sort of skill at, either negotiation or knowledge of what's going to be a little more valuable in the future, rather than just, you know, I'm going to trade these 4 quarters for $1. That's not quite how it works. So, yeah. I don't feel all loot boxes are gambling, but I do feel like some of them get exceptionally close, and I do feel all it's going to take is one company to make a crappy system that does not favor the users at all. And to be fair, like, I don't think the TF2 system favors users. I think that is a means of, you know, drawing in profit for a game that is now free to play, to keep the game up and running, to keep the servers running, because there's still an influx of capital. So I don't feel that it is the best system for players, but because they do have a second-hand market. And Valve did kind of go, you know, legitimate with it by having someone who studied economics deal with their second-hand economy, trying to balance things out so that the odds of getting something valuable are steady to where it's not causing an economic crash of, well, suddenly you're getting a flood of these rare items, which crashes their value, but you're also not keeping them so rare that it's preventing people from buying items. And it's like, oh, there's a 1 in a billion chance of me getting it, I'm not going to spend the money on it. You don't have those extremes. So they had someone who actually has training in economics to sit here and kind of keep things balanced. Is it the best system for gamers? Probably not. But it's not a bad system because they are still trying to keep things stable. Stable for players to get have a chance to get items that they want while still being able to draw in an income off of a free-to-play game. Again, not necessarily the best choice, especially since a lot of these items can really only be acquired through spending money. Like, the concept of the unusual is someone has to buy a key, unlock a crate to get that hat. That's the only way that hat comes into existence, by opening a crate. So there has to be some influx of money because people have to buy keys to open crates. If they stopped the system now, everything would change, but there would be a finite number of these items. But the problem is that finite number could go down because you can destroy them for whatever reason, or just delete accounts and these items be lost forever. So there's a gray area with that too, because it's still at its core the only way to get this item is by spending real money. But then they have a second-hand market that allows you to kind of subvert that a little bit, meaning not the only way to get this particular one, because this one's already been unboxed, so someone's already spent the money on it. It becomes very similar to the used game market, or used anything market. It's, this item has already been bought and paid for, so if you have any other way of getting it, it's like the original manufacturer is not quite getting the money from it, but it's still in circulation. But it really will only take one system to go a step beyond that of like, no, the only way to get this is by spending money, and it is tied to your account specifically. There's no way you can give that to anyone else. So the only way you can get this item is by spending money, and it's stuck with you, and then there's not even a guaranteed chance you will get that item. It's you get this box that gives you a chance of getting that item. Even if it's like a penny a box, there's still a chance you're not going to get the item. And typically in systems like this, the more money you spend, the more likely you are to get said item, but there's still always the chance. That's the problem with it. It's like, that's the gambling aspect of it, is if there's only this way to do it, it's bad. Not every loot box system has been created equal, though. There have been some that are pretty good, some that are pretty iffy. And it's the fact that we keep going into the iffy stage. We keep going into that, this is getting more and more progressively bad stage that is causing people to be very, very concerned. So, at the moment, I don't feel that loot boxes themselves necessarily are gambling. It really depends on how the loot box system is implemented. Can it become gambling very easily? Yes, unequivocally yes. Very easy. But does that mean every loot box system is akin to gambling? I don't feel that it is. And, you know, there's going to be arguments left and right on this one. There are people who say the CCG business model is gambling. And some people are going to be like, yeah, you spend money on something that you're not 100% sure what you're going to get. It's gambling. But then you also have all of these other products like the blind bags, blind boxes of, you know, toys and things. Is this going to be what you like? That's, yeah, it's kind of a gamble, but you're still getting something out of it. If I spend $5 on a blind box for a mystery figure, I'm still getting a figure. It may not be the one that I want, but I still have a figure. The same thing goes with the Overwatch loot boxes. I get the loot box, I open it up. It may not be the 4 items that I want, but I still get 4 items that I either didn't have, or if I did have, I get a percentage of currency back that is only usable in this game to buy an item that I want. And I get the boxes for free. I could just get more boxes by spending money as opposed to spending time. It's that trade-off. What do you want to do? Spend time or money? To get all of these items that don't have a gameplay purpose. And even the TF2 weapons, they don't have a gameplay purpose. Like, they don't change the mechanics of the game. They're not keeping weapons that have unique mechanical features behind a paywall. There's not, for those of you who play TF2, playing the sniper, you start off with a sniper rifle, you can get the Huntsman, which is a very different style of weapon as a bow and arrow. It's kind of like the difference between playing Widowmaker and Hanzo in Overwatch, except a little more comically drastic at times. They're not keeping those weapons behind a paywall. You can get them through play, but you can get like special versions that count how many headshots you get, or how many body shots you get. That those are kind of behind a paywall. So, yeah, I really don't feel that loot boxes themselves are intrinsically bad, but I feel that they can get bad. They can, if they're not implemented with the player base in mind, they get very bad very quickly. If they are implemented as a secondary means of drawing in profit, that's when things start getting questionable, because if you spend $60 on a game, and then they also have the loot box system where you can buy other items and have things, you know, locked behind this random number generator, that's scummy. If it's a free-to-play game that has that same thing, it's a little less scummy, or a little more scummy, depending on how you want to look at it. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's like, there's actually reasons behind both would be really scummy. Because it's a free-to-play game, a lot of effort's not typically put into free-to-play games. But anyway, that's a completely different argument on the whole free-to-play versus paid business model for a game. But, like, yeah, it's a thing. There's a trade-off. And it really depends on how the system is implemented. Like I said, I really feel if it's designed to be a fun addition for gamers, either be you get the boxes for free and you can buy more to speed up the process, or if you are allowed to manipulate the in-game economy as you see fit so that you can get the items that you want without having to spend money. Because again, there are people who have been able to get unusuals without spending a dime. They just deal with a lot of the in-game stuff. So like there are ways around it, it just depends on how you want to go about it. Those not necessarily bad. It's when something is locked behind a paid random number generator, and that is the only way to get it. And especially if the only way to get that has a direct impact on gameplay. Like if you're playing a Star Wars game and you get a blaster, and blasters, it takes 4 blaster shots to kill someone. But you could spend money, get a loot box, and get a lightsaber, and a lightsaber's a one-hit kill. Like, yeah, it's a one-hit kill, it's a melee weapon, it's a slightly different gameplay mechanic, but it drastically changes gameplay. But the only way to get that lightsaber is to spend money, and there's not even a guaranteed chance that you'll get it. Then that gets a little scummy. That gets a little bad. So, again, those are my thoughts on loot boxes. Again, it's not a clear-cut issue. I'm really expecting a lot of comments about this. In the comments in my video, people saying that, my take on it's a little incorrect. I'm kind of oversimplifying, and I am. I'm trying to give the most concise viewpoint I have on it, is that it's not all bad, but it can very well be bad. So, like, yes, I am drastically oversimplifying. I do know that, and that's, yeah. And then there are going to be people like, no, it's totally not gambling because of this, that, or the other. It's like, there's going to be a lot of viewpoints on this. And there have been. This has been a huge hot-button topic in gaming for the last month, if not longer. And it just seems like it's getting bigger and bigger. So, I don't want it to come across, I'm in favor of gambling, and everyone, like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying not all systems are created equal. There are some that are more favorable for the player, there are some that are more favorable for the developers raking in cash, and that there needs to be an analysis of each system to see just how good or bad it is for the players themselves. And if it is bad for the players themselves, then how do we address that, rather than saying, oh, we just need to boycott the game in general, because people aren't going to do that. That's not going to happen. We need to find a slightly more realistic stance of how do we voice our disdain for certain systems. Because saying, oh, we're going to boycott this game, I don't ever think that has gotten across any sort of message to any game developer or publisher, especially the larger they go. If you're dealing with an indie developer or an indie publisher, then yeah, probably, a lot of public outcry is going to cause them to change. But, EA, Ubisoft, they're not going to. Like, are they really going to change because, a bunch of news outlets are talking about how their system is gambling? Like, no, they'll issue a statement and then they'll go about their day, as long as they know it's not going to affect their revenue too much. So, I honestly don't think a boycott would work. So I really feel that there needs to be some more dialogue as the gaming community. Like, how can we address this as a community, rather than relying on, either trying to berate the publishers or developers into a different viewpoint than what they're going to go into from a business model standpoint. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts on loot boxes. Are you for them? Are you against them? Do you feel that they're gambling? Do you feel that they're not? Do they draw too much parallels between other things? Do they not draw enough? Is it a slippery slope? Is it we're just getting more and more games with loot boxes to where every game is going to have some sort of loot box system and it's going to be unavoidable? Is that, ushering in some sort of dark ages of gaming? Or can we hope that this is, start of a new renaissance where we see the bad and we're able to do a 180 and get rid of a business practice that people are not comfortable with? Like on-disc DLC, another rant I could do. So there's a lot of back and forth on it. I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Leave me, post a comment, let me know what your thoughts are. Please try to be civil to everyone in the comments section. Like, you may not have to agree with me or any of the other commenters, or vice versa, but be nice. or I'm just gonna delete the comments. I don't really like people being assholes in the comment section. Like, be respectful of a differing opinion and realize that, you know, it's entirely possible to change someone's opinion without calling them a dick or a jerk or calling them an uninformed moron because they have a different opinion than you. Just saying. Just saying. In the meantime, thank you all to everyone who sat through this entire video and who watched the other videos that I produced. All the liking, the commenting, the favoriting, the subscribing does really go a long way to help. And if you want to help the channel directly, I do have Patreon that will also be in the video description. So, thank you for giving me your thoughts, and thank you for listening to mine. So till then, later everyone.